State attorneys general and D.C. are now suing the Trump administration over the cuts to the Health and Human Services Department. The lawsuit, filed on Monday, says the administration has laid off thousands of workers and dismantled agencies, making it impossible for the department to carry out vital health services for the American people. Well, interest rates are one of your top D.C. daily headlines for May the 7th. Can the escalating tariff and trade war with China be turned around? U.S. and Chinese representatives will meet this weekend to de-escalate tariff tensions for the first round of trade talks since President Trump's tariff rollout. Wall Street trending up in pre-market trading on the news. Well, interest rates are expected to stay where they are for now. The central bank likely to hold interest rates steady as they wrap up a two-day meeting this afternoon. The Fed chairman, Jay Powell, says President Trump's tariffs have led to economic uncertainty. President Trump saying tariffs will lead to higher prices and will contribute to inflation. And the latest GDP report shows the U.S. economy unexpectedly has shrunk by 0.3%. House Republicans say that they are on track to pass President Trump's spending bill this week. Republicans say they can save as much as $550 billion in Medicaid fraud over the next 10 years. But Democrats say the word fraud is just code for cutting Medicaid benefits and funding to cover the cost of President Trump's tax changes. Well, the Supreme Court says that President Trump can block transgender troops and also discharge transgender members of the military. Now, there are several hundred, and 7 of them had actually sued the administration to be allowed to continue their service. Now, this is going to play out in lower courts, so it's not over yet, and we could see this back in the hands of the Supreme Court. In January, the president signed an executive order to reverse a Biden-era policy allowing transgender troops to serve openly. 3 federal judges have already ruled against the ban before the Supreme Court's ruling. Well, breaking this morning, President Trump announcing a trade deal with the United States and the UK. That's one of your top D.C. daily headlines for May the 8th. This morning, President Trump confirming on social media the United States and the UK will announce a major trade deal he describes as, quote, full and comprehensive. It is the first trade deal since the president's tariffs rolled out last month. No details yet, but the president's announcement coming this morning at 9 a.m. Houston time. President Trump says he will not lower the 145% tariffs on China ahead of this weekend's trade talks. The president also denying reports that the U.S. requested this weekend's meetings with China. He says in order for the United States to drop or lower its 145% tariff on Chinese imports, China needs to help stop the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. House Republicans may have a tougher time passing President Trump's budget bill with pushback from some of its own party. The Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, or the CBO, found that millions of Americans could lose Medicaid coverage because of proposed cuts in the budget. Now, House Speaker Johnson had hoped to get the measure passed and moved over to the Senate by Memorial Day, but that looks to be unlikely. The Trump administration invoking state secrets privilege in order to avoid handing over documents in the legal fight over Kilmar Abrego Garcia's deportation. The judge has ordered the government and Abrego Garcia's lawyers to submit filings to the issue by Monday. A hearing is set for May the 16th. The Trump administration has been resisting court orders to bring Abrego Garcia back to the United States since he was mistakenly deported from Maryland back in March, failing to facilitate his return as ordered by the Supreme Court. President Trump now looking to tax the super rich, and tariffs on China may be slashed by nearly 100% next week. Those are your top D.C. daily headlines for May the 9th. Tariffs on China could be slashed from 145% to just 50% as early as next week. Now, that's coming from reports as trade and tariff talks between the United States and China start this weekend in Switzerland. Now, the focus is de-escalating trade war tension, not necessarily on lowering tariffs, though the president now says he expects the tariffs will come down after previously saying the tariffs were permanent. Pre-market trading on Wall Street trending up on that news. President Trump's big, beautiful bill may not be so big after all. Republican lawmakers pushing back on budget cuts, saying tax cuts would add too much to the country's deficit and cut too much into programs like Medicaid. President Trump reportedly now pushing to tax the rich to get his spending bill passed, telling Speaker Johnson to hike taxes on the super wealthy more than 2.5% for anyone making more than $2.5 million a year. The tax hike is meant to help pay for the president's wider tax cuts from 2017 and make them permanent. Could FEMA be on the chopping block? The Trump administration has fired the acting head of FEMA, hinting the federal agency management agency could be shut down. In January, while touring flood damage in North Carolina, President Trump said his administration planned to recommend dismantling FEMA, instead letting states manage their own disaster recovery. And President Trump also firing Librarian of Congress Carla Hayden, the first woman and first African-American to serve in that role. A conservative group had claimed that she and others were promoting children's books with what they called radical content.